Hey guys, it's Mario from WATL, and one of the questions that I get asked a lot about is how do I come up with the ideas of how to design an axe? A lot of people don't know, but I actually, in a previous kind of life, before I started Bad Axe and before I started the World Axe Throwing League, I used to actually manage a creative agency, and we did a lot of digital innovation work. I used to come up with campaign ideas, brand names, look and feel of websites. And so my creative design process is actually more functional, I would say. And the way I approach all my problems, I look at that fundamental problem that I'm trying to solve. When it comes to axe throwing, the problem I'm trying to solve is how can I create a product that is A, durable, but B, provides people an advantage that is actually specific for throwing. Now, if you look at a regular hardware store axe, and this is what I did when I first started Bad Axe, they were awful. You know, we had to throw so hard at the pine boards. There didn't exist any that were meant for axe throwing. You know, the first fundamental thing that you have to start with, and I learned this actually at the Canadian Open specifically from my comp, is that axes, when you're designing them and you're using them to throw, you're not using them to split wood, you just need them to stick. And so we started making our axes extremely sharp and extremely thin. So for example, the Butcher, or any of our axes, whether it's the Ace of Spades or the Butcher, you'll notice that they're all thin. So that was problem one solved. Problem two was, I'm gonna design something that allows people to have an advantage where you have the full 4-inch coverage. I'm not gonna lie, this axe is not pretty. Like, it's an ugly looking axe. It's a box, but it's so functional. When you land flat, you get that 4-inch coverage. If you land at a perfect angle, you get about 4¼ 4½ inches of total coverage. And that's the beauty of this axe. So problem two, I resolved. Now, when you look at the Ace of Spades, the popular axe that people really like to use was the vintage plum. There was also an inherent problem with the plum, where the plum's design in the front, the bottom curve actually came up. It comes up quite a bit. And so when you were deep into the boards, it kind of was a weak design. What I ultimately did is I designed something that allowed for much coverage at the bottom. We actually patented this design because it is different. And you know, from the naked eye, people will be like, oh yeah, you know, that's a plum. It's not a plum. This is an Ace of Spades. The other thing too is, you know, I'm looking at longevity. I'm looking for an axe that sticks. I'm looking for an axe that all throwers can throw quite easily, so adjusting the length. I'm looking for, you know, steel that is essentially strong enough that will be useful enough for throwing. These are kind of some of the design problems that I like to kind of solve for. The other thing that I wanted to do is, how can I create an axe that is beautiful? If you look at a lot of the axes out there, they have, you know, a simple laser logo or a logo that's stamped on it. I said, you know what we're gonna do is we're gonna spend the extra money and we're going to actually engrave in every single one of the axes our logo, and we're going to engrave the Ace of Spades logo in the background. A lot of our new axes that are coming up, which we call the Royal lineup, the Jack of Clubs, Queen of Hearts, and then the Ace of Spades. The King of Diamonds won't work because it's a duals axe, but they all will have an engraving in the background. The other thing that you have to think about when you're designing product is, how can I make a handle that is durable? We opted in to upgrade and only use genuine hickory wood. Extremely expensive to manufacture. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the axes take a lot of time to make. All of them are actually made and manufactured by hand. So we have the forging process that takes place, but thinning it out and getting it to this point, you can't do that just by full automation by machines. This is where there's a lot of human intervention in mind. Design has to be fluid. And so when you're creating any sort of product, and I'm not talking about axes, it could literally be anything, whether it's a website, whether it's the markers that we use at Waddle, it has to be a continual process where you're learning and you're constantly improving.
Who says you can't make things better?
The Commanders, they came in a little heavy for the first gen. And while I liked that heavier axe, the majority of the people did not like that. And so our generation 2, we adjusted it, and I don't know if you can tell there, but there's a lot less steel in the back than there used to be, so we shaved it down a bit. Design isn't easy. It requires a lot of thought, and it requires a lot of breaking the problem down to its simplest form and identifying what you're solving for. Hopefully this helps give you an idea of kind of what the thought goes into a lot of these axe designs. Whenever you purchase this axe, it allows us to actually further and grow the sport. This is how we've been able to grow Waddle, be able to have these large payouts, these large prizes, have more tournaments put back into the community. We're the only organization right now that is focused on building products specifically for you throwers. There's no other company that focus solely and only for throwing axes like we do. We're the only organization that then puts the money back into the actual organization, so then we can have greater prizes, so we can hire more resources, so we can develop greater product, greater software to manage leagues, to have more regional tournaments, to have people who manage the regional tournaments, judge certification programs. We have all these things suited ultimately to help you.
And I'm doing it for you.
And so, when you purchase a wattle axe, you're actually ultimately supporting the organization as well. So I hope this helps kind of give you some insights into the design process that goes into all these axes. And if you have any questions, drop them down below and I'll try to answer them myself. Thanks so much, guys.